Okay, so now we're going to be talking about one of the most terrifying of the highly anthologized stories of the 20th century, Joyce Carol Oates' story, Where Are You Going, Where Have You Been? The story was written in 1966, and it sort of served as a consistently read horrifying take on which a young girl is led out of her house by a creepy fellow. There have been lots of different interpretations of this story as to what the antagonist Arnold Friend represents, what Connie represents, what Joyce Carol Oates is trying to say in this story. There's lots of elements of mystery to it as well, but at its very most direct surface, it's about a girl being kidnapped by a monster. So, in a sense, one of the underlying facts here is that Connie is attractive, and her vanity is something that gets her into trouble. She goes out with her friends. They end up, taking advantage of the fact that they can be dishonest about things. They don't necessarily have to be held accountable for their actions. Connie, for example, is sort of, given a hard time by her mother. She's being drawn in direct contrast to her sister, who is chunky and steady, as they put it, somebody who's not popular, whereas Connie is. Also, Connie is somebody who doesn't have a strong male figure in her life. Her father is described as just coming home and, just sort of sitting around and not really doing anything. He's ineffectual and doesn't seem to play a strong role in her life whatsoever. Connie, her vanity and her sort of naivete gets her in trouble, though, when this haunting character ends up coming to her house while her parents and family are at a barbecue. This guy, Arnold Friend, drives up with his friend Ellie and proceeds to coerce and threaten Connie into actually leaving the house to go with him, where presumably bad things are going to be happening to her. So there are lots of different possibilities about what Arnold represents. There are some things in the story that are suggestive of the idea that Arnold is in fact representative of the devil, such as the fact that it says that he has trouble standing up. It seems like things are stuffed into his boots. He almost falls over a couple times, like potentially he has hooves, and the boots are something that are going to be difficult for him to walk in. It also states that it seems like he's wearing a wig. Then there's Ellie, his friend, who is described as having a very pale chest, and he has his collar pulled out in front of him, which seems very vampiric as well. Another thing about Arnold that seems a little bit terrifying is the fact that he knows exactly where Connie's family is, that they're at a barbecue at Aunt Tilly's, and he refers several times while he's trying to coerce Connie, saying that he knows exactly what they're doing, that they're husking corn, that they're about to eat, all of that sort of stuff. So he does seem to have this kind of knowledge of things that he could not have knowledge of, which lends credence to the idea that Arnold represents a devil figure. Another thing about Arnold is that he's sort of, in a way, one of the commentaries here is the idea of popularity and trends. He has a statement on his car that is something that was popular last year. There's an instance in which he says several things that seem to be popular phrases, but they're not quite right. He's also too old to be interested in trends. He's listening to the popular radio station. All of these things sort of serve as Oates' critical commentary on what it means to follow the popular things, even when popular things aren't quite right. But ultimately, it does sort of come down to this problematic situation, which Connie, who had taken life very, very much for granted and had just been sort of flaunting herself. It talked about how she was two-sided. She had a walk for at home and a walk when she was out with people. She had a voice and a sense of humor for at home and a different one when she was out with her friends. That this sort of duplicity in her own character and her lack of sincerity and honesty actually comes back to, hurt her in this problematic way. Which of course does raise a complicated theme of, did Connie ask for it? This is a highly controversial question, and for a long time since this story has been written, people have made the argument that Connie, through her behavior and through her vanity, actually asked for the Arnold friend thing coming into her life. Now we're a little bit more sort of, amenable to the idea of giving Connie some more credit. She's just an innocent young girl, and just because she's sort of an idiot in a way doesn't mean that she deserves to have some sort of evil male figure come into her life and take her away and potentially be in position to be raped and killed. So this is a bad thing. So whether Connie deserves it or not, that's a question that you can ask yourself and debate. But either way, Arnold Friend is definitely the antagonist of this story. Another theme is that it does bring up just the general plight of women, that women constantly are in a situation in which they have to fear retribution from a stronger male figure at any point in their lives. That's definitely something that Oates has written about in her career, and something that's a little bit troubling. On top of all this stuff, though, there are a couple interesting mystery elements of this story. A story called Where Are You Going, Where Have You Been? If you recall, there's that one moment in which Arnold Friend points to the numbers on his car and says that they represent sort of a special code. Okay, those numbers are 33, 19, 17. Here's something sort of really crazy, is that if you go to the Old Testament of the Bible and you count the books backwards from the last book of the Old Testament back towards the front, the 33rd book from the end is Judges. If you go to Judges chapter 19, verse 17, here is what it says. And when he had lifted up his eyes, he saw a wayfaring man in the street of the city, and the old man said, Whither goest thou, and whence comest thou? Okay, whither goest thou, and whence comest thou? That sure seems an awful lot like where are you going, where have you been? Joyce Carol Oates herself has been very unwilling to sort of dive deep into this. She's actually, in some cases, said that the numbers were purely random, but this seems a little bit too coincidental. But either way, it's just an instance in which you can come up with your own conclusions. Another thing that's been said is Arnold Friend. Why is he called that? If you take the word R out of both his first and last names, of course you end up with an old fiend, which would of course lead to the devil type of interpretation. But these are just the types of things that you can consider in literature, that you can ask yourself, did the author really mean to put those there? Does it matter whether the author put them there? What other things is this story trying to tell us? But at the end of the day, Where Are You Going, Where Have You Been is a haunting, horrifying story that shows a girl who, ended up in a pretty awful situation.